Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. So Steve Bruce faces the sack from Newcastle after another disappointing loss against Spurs. 3 points from 8 games. I'm sorry, I don't buy into this whole Newcastle have got new owners, they should stay loyal to Steve Bruce. Their form is relegation form, and ultimately I think Steve Bruce himself would accept the sack. If you've got to get to work tomorrow and you've got a crap car on your drive that's not reliable and has broken down, and someone knocks on your door and says, I've got a brand new Ferrari for you, it's got a full tank of petrol, everyone's going to think you're great, do you want to use it? You can have it. And you go, nah, you know what, I've had that shit car for years, I'm going to stick by that even though it's broken down and it won't get me to work. Of course you're going to go with the nice new Ferrari that's got a full tank of petrol. I don't get it. I've seen some journalists saying, Steve Bruce doesn't deserve this, doesn't deserve that. Whoever deserves the sack. I mean, if we live in a world of being nice, then nobody ever deserves the sack. But the reality is, Newcastle have got a lot of money. Why pretend that Steve Bruce is going to be the answer? Steve Bruce himself will know he's going to get the sack. Steve Bruce has never in his life been considered for the Man City job, the Chelsea job, the Manchester United job, the Liverpool job. He's not that level of a manager. He knows he's not that level of a manager, and that's the level Newcastle are going to be. Newcastle may as well remove Steve Bruce now while there's a legitimate excuse to do. It's not like getting rid of Mark Hughes, who just won a game for Man City when they sacked him. They're getting rid of a manager who's got 3 points from, 24? Sack him. And Steve Bruce will get the payoff, and Steve Bruce will go and get another job at someone like Sheffield United and do a good job, because Steve Bruce is a good sort of bottom half of the Premier League manager, top sort of Championship manager side. He's not going to be a manager of Newcastle, and Newcastle sacking him is fully justified. Whatever you think about the Newcastle ownership, and look, there is valid stories there about that if you want to get into that, but the fact is they're very rich, the fact is they're very ambitious, and the fact is that Steve Bruce needs to be sacked. And, it's not very nice to see somebody sacked, but he does. And where they go from here is going to be very interesting, because I tell you what, there's a bigger problem for Newcastle. It's a bit like my club, Manchester United. We want to be in a title race this season. It's only the middle of October. What do? We're in a bloody mess. Newcastle want to be a top 4 Premier League winning, Champions League winning side. They're in a relegation race. They can't buy anybody until January, and we're still 2.5 months out from that. There's still so many points to be played for. Newcastle could be cut adrift if they're not careful. And also for the players, they're in a weird mentality position, because they know that apart from probably St Maximum, none of those players are really going to survive very long as soon as the money starts to be spent. And who do you bring in as the manager? I know Frank Lampard is the biggest, got the best odds. But ultimately, is Frank Lampard good enough anyway? We don't know. Some people think he's a good manager, some people don't. I think he's a good manager, but is he good enough to go into Newcastle and work with those players to start getting them points to keep them up? I mean, it could be a dream job for Frank Lampard. You keep them up, you start spending money, you get better and better and better, and you're there from the start and you stay there for a long time. But I heard somebody say the other day, get Big Sam in till the end of the season. Tell him he's only there till the end of the season. Just keep this club up, and then you can go. But the reality is that didn't work last year when Sam Allardyce went to West Brom, did it? So I think it's a very interesting one. But Newcastle have got to get that right appointment in. And look, they're right to do it. They're right to remove Steve Bruce. Some would say we'll keep him in. He's kept them up before, and maybe he can keep them up again. And maybe they will look at doing that. But ultimately, I think it's the opportunity to make start making the changes they want to make, and I think that they do need to do that. You can't buy a club and then just go, Steve Bruce stay, players stay, and we'll look at this later on if we can stay up. They need to start making big steps. They need to start doing new things, and it's a new change of direction. And Newcastle are in big problems. So look, Bruce may not be sacked as you're watching this video. He may well be sacked as you're watching this video. But he does need to be sacked for the reasons I just said there. Newcastle have got money. Newcastle want to be ambitious. Steve Bruce is never going to be that manager. And ultimately, the start to their season is dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. They have got no excuse, really, to have 3 points from 24 when you look at the size of that club, regardless of the money that they've got, the squad that they've got, the size of that club. They should not be in a position where teams like Brentford and Brighton are tearing it up because they've got better coaching. Those players could perform better. Bruce has run his course, and I think he knows he has, and I think he expects the sack, and Newcastle should just go and do that. And yes, they can't spend the money to buy the players they want to buy yet, but you know what? If you know anything about football, They will spend money in January. They're going to spend a lot of money in January. January's a long way off in relation to there's a lot of points to be played for, but it's not a long way off in relation to signing players. Now, do you want Steve Bruce spending £100 million of your money, or do you want Frank Lampard or Emery or whoever it is they're going to bring in actually in that club now saying, I want this, I want that? And that's why, for me, this sacking is going to happen extremely fast. I think they didn't do it before the Spurs game because they didn't want to be the owners who came in and go, we're sacking you without having a game. I think they've given him a game, they've lost that game, and now it's like, look, we gave you a chance, you blew it, you're gone. And then you bring the manager in, and that manager starts working with the club straight away about players to bring in January that manager wants. Because although Newcastle can afford to spend money, you don't want to spend £100 million on Steve Bruce in January to stay up when he's going to go. So it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the bigger question is, what do you think about, could Newcastle get relegated? I would say no, I don't think that they will do. I think that the money they will have available and the quality of manager, I mean, they can spend a lot of money on a manager. They can't spend a lot of money on players until January, but they can spend a lot of money on manager, coaches, etc. And that will be enough, I think, to keep them up. Norwich are going to go down for sure. Who else is going to go down with them? It's hard to tell at the moment, but I think Newcastle can avert that with decent coaching appointments and then decent players coming in January, which of course they're going to do, and that's a massive advantage. So I don't see Newcastle going down, but I do think it could be a difficult time for them up until January the 1st, when they can actually start to flex some of those financial muscles in relation to player acquisition. So look, I don't think Newcastle will go down. Maybe you do, maybe many of you hope they do. I mean, I think it'd be funny if they went down, to be honest with you, but I still don't think it would stop them coming straight back up. And then, you know, I don't think the Newcastle journey to the top is going to be derailed by them being relegated. It might elongate it by another year, it might not, you know, but I certainly think that they will be bouncing. I don't think they will get relegated, and I think that, you know, I ultimately think the sacking of Steve Bruce is correct. And I know some people don't like that, but I do. Just want to add a little bit about Spurs. I mean, it's a good win for Spurs. It puts Spurs ahead of Manchester United, and some people think Spurs have had a bad season, and I don't think they've played that great, but you know, Harry Kane is going to be so influential for Newcastle. I mean, who knows? Harry Kane might be wearing a Newcastle shirt at some point in his career. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I think Spurs, if they can get Harry Kane back, and Harry Kane's clearly not been in the right headspace, which is a shame. But professionally, he has to get into that headspace, because, you know, you can't just keep not performing. One, you won't get the move you want, and two, if you don't get the move you want, you're still playing Premier League football, and, you know, you've got to deliver your own standards. Do I think Spurs are in a race for top four? I think the race for top four is very, very interesting now. Of course, Newcastle would love to be in that. They're not going to be in that this season, categorically not. That would be miraculous. But I think Spurs will quite fancy their chances. Certainly Arsenal will. I think Leicester, West Ham, good results. They're getting back into it. Everton, if they can get Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin back, will be a better side. And United are vulnerable at the moment. I mean, I said at the start of the season that Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City, it should be the most boring top four race ever, because those four teams should be contesting it and no one should get close. No one should get close. But Manchester United have had such a bad start to the season. Leicester thoroughly deserved to beat them yesterday, and I think that other clubs are going to quite fancy their chances. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that top four race develops, especially, again, I think between now and Christmas is going to be so interesting. Now and January the 1st is going to be so interesting, because Newcastle, we know their potential is to supersede everybody in Europe. But right here, right now, they're sort of disadvantaged because they can't spend money, which is why they need to change the manager. But look, thanks everyone for watching. Get your comments in below. What are your thoughts on the situation? Who do you think should be the next manager? Do you think it's right to sack Steve Bruce? And a little bit on the top four race. How do you think? Do you genuinely think United won't finish out the top four? As a United fan, I think the door's open to clubs. But I think what will save United is that the more teams fighting for top four means that they can't beat each other. You know, they're going to beat each other and they're going to drop points. Spurs might feel that they're a contender, but they'd have to beat Arsenal, West Ham, Leicester, you know, all the Evertons, all these teams. And I think they're going to beat each other, and that's always going to go into United's favour, because I think United can get enough points to be the best of the rest and finish fourth. Anyway, there you go. I don't think Newcastle can get relegated. I don't think United will finish outside the top four. Let's see what you think about it. Thanks for watching. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe, and remember our next our next live content will be the watch along for Arsenal Palace tomorrow night. Speak to you all in a bit.